Let me get to our guest, Aaron Rice, Director, Mississippi Justice Institute. And lots of things going on there. Good morning, sir.
Good morning, Paul. How you doing?
It is good to have you, sir. Appreciate it so very, very much.
Absolutely.
You
Thanks for
haven't
having
been in
me.
the studio in a while.
It has been a while. We've just been so busy.
Well, and I thank you for coming in. You got two things here that I want before we get to anything else, and I mean these are pretty big deals. And the first is that Missouri case. How did you guys get involved in that?
Yeah, we got involved in that, really kind of coming to the aid of some of our friends at a group called the Southeastern Legal Foundation. And so they filed a lawsuit on behalf of two teachers who were compelled to attend some anti-racism training at their public school district. Mm-hmm. And it's really kind of a compelled speech case. I mean, if you're familiar with anti-racism training, one of the tenets of that is that it's racist to disagree with anti-racism theory. And so these teachers were told they had to go to this training. Of course, they were, told all kinds of things about, the tenets of anti-racism training that we're all familiar with, that, that they were oppressors, that they were racist and all of that. And but interestingly, they were required to speak in this training and say whether they agreed or disagreed with these tenets. And one of the teachers said that she disagreed with it and was told that she was wrong and that she needed to work on herself. And of course, kind of labeled a racism because, again, it's considered racist to disagree with anti-racist theory. And so another teacher just went along, even though she disagreed with it, and said that she agreed with all of these things. And so the Southeastern Legal Foundation filed a lawsuit on behalf of those teachers. Where we come in, and it gets worse, Paul, is that the federal judge in Missouri threw that case out of court, and not only did he throw it out, but he ordered the public school teachers to pay nearly $300,000 in attorney's fees to the government for bringing that case. And so they have appealed it to the Eighth Circuit Court of Appeals, and that's where we stepped in and got involved, too, to help our friends at the Southeastern Legal Foundation. And so we filed a brief on appeal supporting the position of these teachers, first of all arguing that the district court should be reversed. They should go back down to the trial court and have their day in court on their claims. But second of all, that they certainly should not be required to pay nearly $300,000 in attorney's fees to the government for having brought this. So that the whole thing really chills the speech of these teachers. But this $300,000 attorney's fee award is really a shot across the bow that sends the message that nobody else should ever push back on this, DEI and anti-racism training in schools.
Yeah. Even in the local high schools or elementary schools.
Yeah, absolutely.
We hear people who say that doesn't happen in Mississippi, and then as soon as it happens, we get a lot of people who said, yeah, it's happening in our state. As a matter of fact, we had a gentleman on the air not that long ago said it was happening up in the northern part of the state.
Yeah, I think transparency is going to be an issue that we're going to need to work on in Mississippi, because it's like you said, right now so much of it is word of mouth, and it's hard to really get verification on exactly what is being taught.
Here's what I was looking for here, thumbing through this while you're talking, because I think it fits in here. There was a new poll out there, and I don't even know if Democrats look at polls anymore that they don't like. They're so tied to those small fractions or those small demos like the LGBTQ, the trans units and everything else that they don't waver from that at all. But trends in polling from the last 5 years are showing that Americans are becoming more conservative in their opinions on transgenderism and other related issues such as what you just talked about. Pew Research has reported a noticeable increase in their results of Americans expressing agreement that a person's gender is determined by their sex at birth. You wouldn't think this would be a story a few years ago.
Yeah, it's been very interesting to see how quickly all of this has taken form.
And are you amazed at how much power these small groups have?
It is. It's very interesting, like you said. I mean, if you just talk about transgender issues in general, mm-hmm. You're pointing out, you're really talking about a very, very small percentage of the American population that would even fall into that camp to begin with. But then, all of America has to change everything they do to kind of fit that mold. So, it is very interesting to me.
Those who actually identify, and I'm not talking about trans only, but those who identify as lesbian or gay or bisexual or trans, the entire grouping there in India is 1%.
Yeah.
Ireland 2.6, New Zealand 2.7, Spain 2.8, Argentina 3, Brazil 3.5, Germany 3.9. In the United States, only 4.5% of the entire population identify as lesbian, gay, bisexual, or transgender. The highest in the Netherlands at 6%. Canada is 5.3%.
Yep.
So we are about 4.5% in this country.
Yep.
But they do have the love of the administration and the media.
Absolutely.
Back to on that polling, I did also want to mention this. According to the 2023 Gallup poll, there's been an increase in Americans who think the changing gender is morally wrong. And there's also been an increase among Republicans and independents, while the Democrats are believing it is morally wrong decrease. So the morality of the Democrats is sinking. Did you see any of the wonderful video from the Pride March in Seattle?
I did not see it. I heard some of the vulgar things that were displayed there. And, that goes to what I think is the real concern here, which is, children being present for that kind of thing. And you just mentioned, people's views about the morality of changing genders in general. But to me, the big takeaway where the, transgender movement has really gone off the rails is when it started involving children. And so when you started having, pushes for hormone treatment for children, or even surgeries for children, or exposing them, to some of these ideas that might confuse them at an early age and things like that. I think that's when a lot of people started pushing back and saying, look, if, y'all can do whatever you want, but when you start affecting our kids, we're going to draw a line there.
Aaron Rice, who is director of Mississippi Justice Institute. Aaron, do we not have any of those vulgarity laws on the books, are they on the books and everybody just ignores them? Because, you actually had numerous men, and I mean out of shape, middle-aged, and older men, buck naked. I'm talking maybe with shoes and socks on, but that was it.
Yeah.
On bicycles, riding around, kids in the parade route. And you even had a couple of congressmen, U.S. congressmen, who were on the news a little bit earlier this morning talking about how they were a part of the parade, and God bless all of the LGBTQs. That's fine. We're not saying anything about them. We're just saying that this open display of nudity and profanity is accepted. Not even, it's more than accepted. It's encouraged.
Celebrated, yeah. That would be a matter of state law, but I wouldn't be surprised if they do have laws that outlaw that kind of, vulgar display in public, and that, like you said, that it was just ignored.
And there's so many other things, too. There's a state Supreme Court case that could impact future school choice legislation. Need to talk about that
Absolutely.
and other things with Aaron Rice when we return right after this. I was listening earlier this morning, and Aaron Rice is my guest, director of Mississippi Justice Institute. We talk about books on the law, laws on the books, and also talk about things like verbiage used by the media and what they go after, what they don't go after. But this mass shooting thing is driving me crazy because about every shooting they want to quantify as mass shooting, they do. Whether it's 2 people or 10 people, whether it's 4 people shot, nobody dies, or if one person dies. It just goes over and over. A mass shooting is a crime in which an attacker kills or injures multiple individuals simultaneously using a firearm. So it's much like what is an assault rifle. It's subjective to whatever you want to say it is. But I'm looking at one of the articles out there. They never cover mass shootings. For instance, on Memorial Day weekend in the city of Memphis, 15 people got shot. 1 died as a result of that. That was not counted. 154 homicides this year in Memphis. You had 8 people shot, 3 of them fatally, 4:30 this morning, or yesterday morning, Kansas City, Missouri. And then you go on to Chicago, and in Chicago, they had 75 people shot over the weekend, 14 fatally. That's not counted in their mass shootings. So, all right. It's just aggravating to understand that we've been let down by the media and how important an honest, uncorrupt media is to this country.
Yeah.
Always has been. And they have a vital part to play in our freedoms, and they have abdicated that responsibility, and it's sad. We have a case that you guys have a case that it's in the state Supreme Court, and tell me about that and how does it affect school choice in the
Absolutely.
future?
This is another case that we've gotten involved in while an appeal is pending, and so this case is called the Parents for Public Schools versus the Mississippi Department of Finance and Administration. And what it involves is that the state appropriated some federal COVID relief funds, some ARPA funds, to some private schools that were impacted by COVID and needed to, update their infrastructure to prevent, transmission and things like that. And so the issue in the case is that we actually have a provision in the Mississippi Constitution that says public funds cannot be appropriated for private schools or sectarian schools or non-public, schools that aren't free public schools in the state. And so this group of parents brought a lawsuit challenging that appropriation. And there's an argument there in that case about whether this appropriation really runs afoul of the Mississippi constitutional provision because it was really federal dollars, not state dollars, and things like that. But that's not really the concern that we have, and why we're getting involved. The concern we have is that what seems to be getting lost in the case is that even if that aid to the schools, did run afoul of the Mississippi Constitution, one thing that does not violate the Constitution is if the state doesn't appropriate money directly to private schools, but instead provides aid to students who then spend that public money at a private school. So, for example, just a backpack type school choice law is what a lot of people call it. You give the money to the kid, it goes in their backpack. Wherever the kid goes, they can spend that money. And so our concern is that if we were to pass school choice legislation in the future, that it might be impacted by this case if this case is not clear that, when the Mississippi Supreme Court issues its final opinion in this case, that, aid to students does not violate the Mississippi Constitution. And so we filed a brief with the Mississippi Supreme Court making that argument and saying, regardless of how you rule on these, federal ARPA funds and how they were appropriated, you need to make clear in your ruling that, aid can be provided to students who then spend that money at private schools.
Is that going to make it any easier as far as the legislature is concerned in the future?
It will, but rather than making it easier, the real goal is to make sure it's not precluded. So we want to make sure that if the legislature does decide in the future to pass some school choice legislation, it is not hindered by this Mississippi Supreme Court case that is pending right now, and maybe that opinion coming out and making it unclear as to whether the legislature could provide aid directly to students. And so we want the court to be clear that even if it does strike down this appropriation of federal funds, it makes clear that if the state wants to provide money directly to students, it can do that.
It's going to be interesting, and I don't think you've had some states, I think Kansas and a couple of other ones, Florida and several other states, are all moving towards school choice.
Yep.
I hope we're not the last one in the union to do that.
It is amazing. You would think that we would be, one of the first states in that list, and we aren't. Like you said, it has been discouraging. And so right now, in terms of this litigation, it's more about us trying to help keep the opportunity open for us to join that list. Yep. And, of course, we have the efforts we've made with charter schools and things like that. But absolutely, like you said, we would like to see more school choice laws in Mississippi and open that opportunity up more. And so we're trying to keep that window of opportunity there for us to do that if we choose to.
One of the things that's the ingredients, people don't understand this, the winning ingredients that makes us the most exceptional nation that's ever been on the face of the earth is our freedoms under the Constitution in this Democrat-Republic form of government. And when you start looking at that, capitalism is the best because it has competition. And competition jives with the law of the earth in just the strongest survive.
Yeah.
And that's basically excluded in the socialistic form of what we have in public schools out there.
Yeah. Anytime you have a monopoly, as what you're saying, you're going to have poor quality, and you're going to have, it's going to cost more and all of that. And when you open up, opportunity for other people to offer a service and to make sure that they can serve customers or students or parents better, then you're going to have better results.
Anytime you have that competition, it's an antiseptic to failure. And it helps every man, woman, and child, from the parents to the kids in school, regardless of what their ethnicity or gender happens to be.
Absolutely.
But the most disappointing thing is that we haven't moved forward on this one with a Republican majority in the House and Senate.
Yeah.
And in the governor's office.
Yeah.
And if it doesn't happen now, it's certainly not going to happen when you have some Democrats come in or retain leadership in the future. Hopefully, that'll be a long time. What else is going on?
Well, we just also filed a brief in our abortion case that you're probably familiar with. I think we've talked on this show a little bit about, and so we've still got an opinion here on the books in Mississippi that's kind of our mini version of Roe v. Wade, and of course, it's kind of being ignored right now, but it's still there, and it's actually affecting some physicians that we are representing. There's some pro-life physicians, and they are belong to organizations, medical organizations that have ethics rules that say we can discipline you if you don't refer patients for abortions, if you have a moral objection to that. But all of those organizations also make clear that if you're complying with state law, that we won't punish you for that. And of course, if you get punished by these organizations, it could potentially even lead to punishment by the state. But so they make clear that they won't punish you if you're complying with state law. But it's actually not clear what the status of the law in Mississippi is, because we've got a statute that says elective abortion is illegal, but we still actually have this old Mississippi Supreme Court case that says abortion is a constitutional right under the Mississippi Constitution. That's called Mississippi Pro-Choice Mississippi versus Fordyce is that case. And like I said, that's our version of Roe v. Wade, and it's still on the books here. And so we filed a lawsuit for these pro-life physicians, asking the Mississippi Supreme Court, ultimately it will be decided by the Mississippi Supreme Court, to overturn that old, Fordyce opinion and make clear that elective abortion is illegal in Mississippi.
Director of the Mississippi Justice Institute, Aaron Rice. It's hard to believe this is the anniversary of Dobbs.
Yeah,
already. I know. It's amazing.
It is, and it's a good time to bring up this case that's still out there.
And I'm looking forward to seeing some of the numbers, and I'm hoping all the agencies or whomever is charged with doing this gives us an idea of how many babies, how many abortions we had, how to see that decrease, to see the population, to see maybe adoptions going up and things such as that in our state.
Absolutely.
Final segment with Aaron Rice coming up next. Some people wondering whose accent would change the most, Caldwell or Aaron Rice, after a long association. But I haven't detected too much as far as the accent in British in your way. So.
Yeah, I don't think mine has changed yet. But I don't know.
I'm sure when he goes back home across the pond, they'll probably say, "You sound different."
Yeah, I could see it.
Just a quick mention on this one. We had State Auditor Shad White on last week, and we were talking about the millions of dollars spent in diversity training at our universities. No avenue for involvement in that?
Avenue for involvement from us?
Yeah.
It's interesting. We actually did a similar thing to Auditor White. I think this was back in 2018. We sent some public records requests to the universities to get that same kind of information. We probably couldn't compel them to give us as much as the auditor could under state law, but we got some public records, and we did a report. This was, I think we probably published it in 2019, and it was about higher education in general, but we had, excuse me, a section in that report that dealt with, this DEI spending by the universities and kind of, so we were kind of a canary in the coal mine on that, talking about that as early as 2018 and 2019 about how much of our state dollars were going to this, DEI work at universities. In terms of legal involvement, I'd have to think about it. I don't know off the top of my head. For example, that Missouri case we talked about is an example where in public schools, and of course we're talking about a high school in that case, but where the government has at least arguably in our mind they have crossed the line into compelling speech or chilling somebody's speech, which is an injury under our Constitution. If I am intimidated from being able to speak and to express my true views, and I'm basically told by the government that I have to adopt some creed that they think I should adopt and some belief that I should adopt, if I'm either forced to say that I agree with that or chilled, made to be afraid or intimidated from saying what I believe, then that can, involve a lawsuit and a discrimination lawsuit and a free speech lawsuit. And so, that's an example where we've been able to get involved because what's going on rises to the level of a constitutional issue. Yeah. But in terms of the spending overall, I think that may be more of a political issue that, the people of Mississippi, and that's why, the work that Auditor White is doing, I think that's part of why he's doing it, is to let people at least know what the facts are, and then the people of Mississippi can decide if that's how they want their state funds to be appropriated.
Take off your director's hat for a moment. You're looking at the national scene, what's going on with the military as a combat veteran, and you're looking at what's going on at the White House. Private citizen Aaron Rice, your thoughts?
Just in general, are we talking about Ukraine, or are we talking about in general?
I'm talking about Hunter Biden and all the things that are going on, especially with the sanctity, what we deserve and should expect from the FBI and the Justice Department.
Yeah. Well, I'll just speak more generally that I think what you're driving at, that, when I was in the Marine Corps and serving overseas and all of that kind of thing, you need to have the faith and trust in your institutions in general. And that goes from the president, who's the commander in chief, on down, and that's what drives recruitment in the military, is that you have young men and women who believe in our institutions, believe in our country and our way of life, and are willing to stand up and fight for that. And so, just in general, we need to have strong institutions. We need to have, good leaders and all of that in order for us to recruit people. And we are falling down on our recruitment. We've got an all-volunteer, military, and for the first time in many, many years, we're starting to not be able to meet the recruitment goals that we have in order to sustain that all-volunteer military. And so, we absolutely need to have strong institutions and strong leaders so that we can continue to have the military we need to have.
You take a look at the juxtaposition between the memes that are every day on these platforms, and it hit me this morning because I'm watching one with these really naked men on bicycles in the parade route right in front of these kids. One fat guy, naked, I think he had his underwear on, twerking in front of these young kids, and the parents having a great time showing their kids this. Yeah. Then the next meme was a classroom, which was a very large classroom, and I think probably the age was somewhere around maybe, I don't know, 10 to 12-year-old Chinese students, all at the same time going through the practice of how to break down a pistol and put it back together.
That is quite the juxtaposition.
That is juxtaposition, isn't it?
It absolutely is.
Aaron, it's always a pleasure having you.
Good talking to you, Gallo. Thanks for having me.
Appreciate it more. If you want more information, go to
MississippiJustice.org.
Good work, guys. Back with more Roger Winker, 8:05.